Hello and welcome to the first 150 days of pencil sketches. Damn, how did we get here? I mean, after all, this was mostly my digital sculpting channel, right? Well, you see, in June 2024 I started a challenge for myself to create some drawings every single day for as long as I could go. Where did this idea come from? I don't really know. You see, even though by trade I'm a digital artist, my personal preferences have always leaned more towards traditional art. The recent AI influx across all social media has also been another push for me away from the purely digital workflow. Mostly though, I just miss the feeling of holding a pencil and being able to draw something with it. You see, I haven't always been a 3D artist. I haven't exactly been a traditional artist either, but ever since I remember myself, I love drawing random stuff on notebooks, sketchbooks, and even occasionally on walls to the dismay of my parents. Once I got to university to study 3D art and animation, however, traditional art has taken somewhat of a backseat in my life. Eventually I found myself not doing any analog drawings at all. That happened somewhere around 2007. Fast forward 17 years to February of 2024, and this is where I decided to pick up the sketchbook and pencil for the first time again. Around this time I also acquired this little anatomy reference book by Michel Lauricella, and inspired by his sketches I wanted to practice some sketching myself. I was also going away with my girlfriend for a long weekend then, so I knew I wouldn't have access to my computer and this would be the only way to keep my creativity going on the move. Here you can see some initial sketches that I created over that weekend, some using Michel Lauricella for reference, and others were the still life from the objects in the room, like this lovely tea mug. And one of the days we got caught in the rain and absolutely drenched, so I got to sketch my shorts drying on the fan in the hotel room. I thought this was a good start, right? But unfortunately upon returning I dropped my sketchbook for a few months again. However, when I had to travel again in June of that year, the sketchbook and Michel Lauricella book came with me, and this is where my daily sketch challenge has truly began. I wanted to make sure that I stick with it this time, so I made the rules really simple for myself. Rule number 1, it had to be done every day. Rule number 2, 15 minutes or above of sketching counts. Now, I'm the champion of making excuses and procrastinating my way out of anything, but even I can't refute that 15 minutes a day should be something achievable by just about anyone. So without any excuses to save me, I set off on my journey. As you can see, this first sketchbook I was only sketching on one side of the page. I did that to try and avoid the smudges between adjacent pages. You'll see I gave up on that idea very quickly. Initially, I was sketching with charcoal pencils. They're rather soft and they leave thicker and darker lines that are harder to erase than traditional pencils. So in retrospect, perhaps they weren't the easiest medium to begin with. Nonetheless, I had a really fun time messing around with them for a while. I began my journey by just blindly copying the drawings I saw in Michel Lauricella's book. It starts with a section on the heads and faces, so that's what I was drawing. Here was an attempt to draw from life, where I used my guitar as a reference. Then some more heads followed. By the time I reached the ribcage studies, I felt like I needed a bit more of a fine line control, so I decided to switch to a regular pencil. I started with an HB hardness, not sure how successful I was there at the start, especially since it seems my pencil wasn't properly sharpened half of the time, but I continued and by day 23 I reached my first milestone and completed the first sketchbook. Day 24 saw me starting a new one. Here initially I also wanted to use one side of the page to draw, but as you can see here already, that didn't work out. Notice the discrepancy between the days. Day 25 here and day 53 there. The reason this happened is that around day 42 I started experimenting with quick gesture studies, and this is where I realized that I'm still very terrible and I don't actually care about my sketches being smudged. Also, I was progressing through the sketchbooks pretty quickly at this point, and being a poor artist I figured that I would get more bang for my buck if in my sketchbooks I used both sides of the page. So from day 42 I started drawing on both sides of the page, and when I reached the end of the sketchbook I went back to the beginning and filled all the empty gaps. So this next few pages things are a little bit messy, both visually and time-wise. On the right I'm still copying Michel Lauricella, and on the left are my gesture sketches attempts. And on some days the stuff gets inverted because I picked up my sketchbook upside down. Here on the day 59 I was just studying head shapes and various poses. That was pretty fun. And now we reach the fateful day 42 when I first attempted gesture sketching, and then things come back into the order, mostly. Here were my first 2-minute long gesture studies. Pretty terrible, right? Some really funny stickmen. Around this time I also started following Proko's free lessons. Here is me attempting to copy Boris Vallejo's painting using my newfound knowledge. At this point I was really proud of it. I still tried keeping up with Michel Loricella's anatomy book and some more gestures. And now enter the bean. If you don't know what beans are, then definitely check Proko's explanation for them. Ribcage and the pelvis create the two big shapes of the bean. If you can nail those two, then you're on a good route to drawing the whole body. From this point on, you will see me juggling different approaches and trying different things. This was my attempt at simplifying a horse and breaking it down into primary shapes based on one of the Proko's lessons. I'm not sure if I actually simplified it or complicated it even more. Back to the few pages of gesture drawings. This became my main obsession. Alongside with them I was still doing more Proko's lectures, copying anatomy. Honestly, I was all over the place and I was loving it. And here is the robo bean. It's the same as the regular bean but with an added cage on the top to show the planes of the body. Then I was trying to incorporate that into my gesture drawings. And this concludes this sketchbook. A bit of an odd one in terms of order, but we'll call it Creative Mess. On to sketchbook number 3, which starts off with day 62. Some more Proko lessons and then something different on day 64. I'm very lucky to live in London with an access to some amazing museums, so I decided to head to Victoria and Albert to test my skills in the real world. On my way there I also stopped by some cool statues near Hyde Park Corner Station. These are at the V&A already. You can see that foreshortening is my great enemy. I actually keep coming back to this statue every time I'm in Victoria and Albert. One day I'll get it. I think at this point I was already getting kicked out of the museum due to it closing. Back to some Proko. Some more gesture studies. Some more Proko. Back to Michel Loricella's anatomy studies. And here on day 67 is the moment where I decided to bite the bullet and enroll into one of the paid courses on Proko's website. After some consideration, I decided to go with Michael Hampton's constructive figure drawing. I love Michael's structured approach, which shows clear progression from gesture sketch to construction. He starts off with some simple shapes and line practices, explanations of simple perspective and interlocking of the shapes. I actually did some practice of those in a separate sketchbook. Back to the main sketchbook where I continued with my daily gesture drawings. Here I'm doing some lessons from Michael Hampton's course and breaking down the figures into simple shapes and trying the constructive drawing approach. Then back to gesture sketches but trying to incorporate my newly found knowledge. On day 71 I head back to the Victoria and Albert. Here you can spot my foreshortened nemesis, and these guys here were from a World War II monument on my way back from the Victoria and Albert. First cautious attempts at shading too. On day 77 I picked up Michel Loricella's anatomy book again and started trying to copy his drawings yet again, but this time not just by eye but by using the constructive drawing approach. Here I was following Michael Hampton's lesson where he was breaking down the constructive drawing of hands. Anyone who ever tried drawing hands knows they can be an absolute pain. Even AI knows it. The coming days are a mix of gesture drawings and Michael Hampton's lectures. With some drawings you can see me attempting it multiple times. Usually with lectures I'd first try to draw something on my own, and then I would do another version following the lecture's explanation, trying to understand where I went wrong. This one here was from Bridgman. I didn't get far with that. Day 93 was warm-up sketching, then back to figures. Some 2-point perspective practice, more figures, and the last 2 pages are actually from an earlier date. These were my feeble attempts at portrait and nature drawing. And that concludes another sketchbook. On day 96 I'm cracking into my new sketchpad and back to figure sketching. On day 98 I went traveling without the internet, so I started sketching from another Michel Loricella's pocketbook. This one was called Fat and Skin Folds. The next few pages are sketches from this book. And here we come to day 100, sweet milestone. Then I went out exploring and using unsuspecting people as a reference. If you do that, make sure not to get into trouble. Not everyone likes being drawn. All the faces and heads are from the book again, and then I tried to keep it exciting for myself by drawing some environments. Some more heads. I was trying to copy from the book, but I was struggling, so I started to try and figure out some construction method that I could use to draw faces with some level of confidence. I was certainly failing. Around this time I also caught COVID, so that didn't help. Back to figures both from life and from the book. Some hand studies, some terrible portraits of my girlfriend who was getting fed up with me always drawing. They don't look anything like her, by the way. Then back onto the figures. Here I attempted some more detailed anatomy studies. I quite like this one. Trying to get into portraits a bit too, I think I was using some YouTube videos for references. They smudged onto the neighboring page, but what are you gonna do? Here I found myself at Victoria and Albert again. Drawing from life is always harder. From here on, it's a mix of bodies and faces, mostly using Bodies in Motion quick sketch tool for drawings. Some are funny, this one is meant to be a child, really doesn't look like one. And days 149 and 150 are in a new sketchbook already. So here we are, the first 150 days of sketching. I had a lot of fun with it, arguably I even improved somewhat. What do you think? Let me know down in the comments below. As always, thank you for watching. On to the next 150 days. I'll see you in that video.